Okay, so again, our goal of doing this video series is to bring you people that we rely on and that you may not know existed or didn't know what departments they're with, or so that we're actually providing you with kind of the resources we use. And today we have a special resource. Dakota Higgins, he's the Deputy Chief of Staff for 1st District Supervisor Cook. And you've been with him a long time.
Yeah, 13 years. I started off as an intern back in 2013, so it's been a while. We're like an old married couple now.
That's great. So. And I think the first and the foremost, probably the most important question is, and we run into this all the time, is, well, what does the county do? What is the difference between the county and the city, and what do you do?
We do a lot. So we cover all of the unincorporated areas. So if you aren't in, for our district, Adelanto, Hesperia, Victorville, or Apple Valley, you are in the county. So we have primary authority over stuff like land use. We provide your sheriffs, your fire, unless you're in the Apple Valley Fire Protection District. All of the stuff that a city would normally do, trash services, public works, taking care of roads, all of that stuff is the county's responsibility. And then broadly, we also are essentially the distributor of all of the different social welfare programs that the state and federal government have. To give you an idea, we had a $10.6 billion budget last fiscal year. Of that, under $2 billion, I think it was like about 1.6 to 1.8, was actual general fund dollars, which is your sales tax, property tax, stuff that's generated here locally. Everything else was state and federal dollars that kind of passed through us for, TAD, workforce development, behavioral health, public health. All of that stuff is funded by the state and feds, and we just administer it. So we do a lot in all of those sectors as well.
So it's fair to say that you have certain functions that are the functions of a municipality, and that'd be for anybody who's in an unincorporated area. That this is our government.
Yeah.
And then you have these general kind of, they're not, well, they're oversight too, right? But you have these general functions where you're interfacing with a school district possibly, or with a program, or directly with people that are receiving aid, and so
all the welfare stuff, all the stuff getting people who have mental health issues, services, a lot of homelessness stuff right now. That's a big topic across the state. So it's a little bit of everything, especially compared to a city. You don't see most cities doing homelessness stuff. A lot of cities, you don't see them doing anything like welfare related or temporary assistance or anything like that. So definitely a lot to take in.
So you mentioned land use, and I would say 90% of the times we're calling you is for help with land use, or help with something that's happening out in the great wild, I like to call it, right? Where, this person has been driving over my land, or I built my house on somebody else's land, or, code enforcement. I mean, that's, tell me a little bit about that function.
Well, first I'll say you guys always have the most unique calls. Like the normal ones that are just kind of run-of-the-mill, like average stuff. Normally people don't call us. I like to think our land use team does a good job. But yeah, land use services, it's everything, like you mentioned, from code enforcement to building permits, to plan check, planning, everything it takes to go from an empty dirt lot to putting a house or a commercial building or anything in between on it. And then all of the code enforcement stuff to make sure that it's up to code, into the future.
Got it.
So it's an experience.
And as we were talking about before this, there was a redistricting. So can you explain a little bit about what the 1st district is comprised of?
Yeah, so every 10 years we redraw our boundaries, just like Congress and the State Assembly and State Senate. Our process was actually governed by our county charter. The voters in 2020 had adopted a charter amendment, so we had a whole advisory committee that drew these boundaries for us. Mark Creffield from the Chamber was the 1st district appointee to that. And we lost Newberry Springs, Daggett, Yermo, which are all unincorporated communities outside of Barstow, and then Needles. And so basically that whole I-40 corridor that used to be in the 1st district, now it's in the 3rd. The high desert was the fastest growing area in the county between 2010 and 2020. So we had to get rid of population to average it out, because all 5 districts have to be roughly the same, within 5% of each other. So yeah, we had to give up some territory to Supervisor Rao.
I understand. And With that comes, I would assume, or maybe you can speak to this, some different funding challenges, or does it change the budget when that happens?
It does internally. Every supervisor gets about the same to start, and then we get supplements based on how many unincorporated residents we serve. Supervisor Rao now has the most. She has all of the desert kind of east of Barstow. She has Landers, Lucerne Valley, kind of coming down a line. If you draw a line south from Barstow, she has all of the mountains east of the 15. So Lake Arrowhead, Twin Peaks, the unincorporated areas around Big Bear, Forest Falls, Angeles Oaks, all the other communities that she could name that I cannot because we don't represent that area. So she has a huge district, and she always reminds us of, oh, I have to drive out to Needles today. Thank you very much for encouraging me to vote for this map, which is fun for her. I'm glad we don't have to do that. And then our district starts in Trona, up on the northern edge of the county, and comes all the way south to Wrightwood. And then we have Apple Valley, Adelanto, Hesperia, Victorville, and the unincorporated areas around Barstow, like on the west side. And then like Baker, kind of the 15. After Barstow, we have the 15 out to Vegas.
And what's the interplay with, the county assessor and different departments, the recorder's office? Is all that in your purview there?
No, so they all have independent elected officials.
Got it.
So, obviously we have a sheriff coroner, Shannon Dykes. We have a district attorney, Jason Anderson. I think those are people that most voters are familiar with.
Right.
And then we have a county assessor. It's Josie Gonzalez. She's the assessor, recorder, clerk. Those positions are combined. She was actually unopposed. She doesn't have an election this year, which, great for her. I'm envious. I've never worked for an elected official that has been able to do that. We have an auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, which is Ensign Mason, and he has a very spicy election right now. And then we have a superintendent of schools, Ted Alejandre. He's retiring. And I feel like I'm skipping over. No, that's all of them.
Yeah.
That's all of them. Yeah, there's 5. So.
And is there interplay between the supervisors and each one of these electeds?
There is. We vote on all of their budgets. We approve, contracts with their vendors, things like that. So, great example, 2-3 weeks ago, Sheriff Dykes, came and we did a loan to the Sheriff's Department to buy more, I think, radios from Axon, I want to say. But we have, stuff like that where, the voters elected him as sheriff. All of the voters, not just, we represent 1/5 of the county. All of the county's voters made him the sheriff, but he still has to come and ask us for, funding and stuff like that. So you have to have a really good working relationship back and forth. And I think, for the most part, we have a really good county team, and especially, Sheriff Dykes and DA Anderson are incredible people.
And he's a homegrown, right?
Oh yeah, first district resident.
Yeah, so that's great.
Yeah.
I like when that happens.
Oh, there's a long history of first district sheriffs. I hope it continues well into the future because it's always nice. They get the desert areas a lot better than, no offense to anyone who lives in Rancho Cucamonga, but you don't really know what goes on out in the middle of the desert at night and, all the unique problems and challenges that has unless you grew up here.
Right. And before I go, so when I'm dealing with clients, there's an interplay, or there's always a discussion about how to access. But before we go into that, what you were saying is so interesting because it also talks about how incorporated cities contract with county services for different things.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that push and pull and how that works? Like, for instance, with Victorville or Apple Valley, how you guys have to interface to provide services?
Yeah, so the most common is sheriff's contracting. All 4 of the cities in our district are sheriff's contract cities. Victorville is actually the second largest contract the Sheriff's Department has behind Rancho. It's great value for our local residents. I know every 5 to 10 years, I think someone, maybe on a city council somewhere or in the community, says, why don't we start our own police department? One of the nice things about the contract is, they're paying for their patrol force, their detectives, their office staff, their lieutenants, their captains, however big the contract is. They aren't paying for the helicopters. They aren't paying for SWAT. They aren't paying for the bomb squad or anything like that. If there's a homicide that's really specialized, the homicide guys from down the hill come up and investigate it. They aren't paying for those guys. So there's a lot of like additional value. And it's, making sure that everyone, as city councils change and city managers change, making sure that everyone still realizes that is always a little bit of work we do. Adelanto contracts for county fire. Hesperia has county fire. It's slightly a different system, but our county firefighters do really good work out there, and then also cover most of the unincorporated areas. And all of that interaction with the cities is interesting. And then also we build buildings, like whether it's there's some cities that don't want necessarily like a welfare office in their city, and so kind of negotiating that and moving through that in a way that we're all being partners, because at the end of the day the county is only as strong as its cities, so we want Victorville and Hesperia and everyone to be successful. It's not just put it all in the unincorporated areas. As much as that looks good for us, we want it to be kind of a rising tide that lifts all boats.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be close to population, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, I was, maybe this is an opinion I shouldn't share, but I was super bummed when the last, when Hesperia got chosen for a lot of those county buildings. I was hoping they would go to Old Town and revitalize that, but I'm not sure Old Town even wants that. That's just in my own little world that I created.
I think that's really interesting. Fontana did something somewhat similar. They had a similar challenge that Old Town faces, and they call it the core, and they started buying up all of the buildings as a city when they would come on the market, because it was just really run down. And they've revitalized all of them. They're trying to get more like government workers in there to bring in all the restaurants and all of the commercial stuff to support that workforce. They've done Stage Red, which is a big, I think it's Jimi Hendrix is the guy who's from, I forget, the guy who's from Haggerty, like the guy who's from Fontana originally, the rock star. They did a partnership with him for a music venue down there. So they've really revitalized it, and I think Victorville has similar opportunities. It's going to be interesting to see how the Old Town kind of conversation plays out.
It's got, I get in this conversation. It's got to be population first. You can't put the commercial there without the population.
Exactly.
So, and if you put a government building, they kind of have to go to work there. So there, you start with that,
and then you get restaurants in there, and then it brings up property values enough that people want to do nicer housing, and
so on and so forth.
Yeah, it works out.
So, okay, some people would say, and I haven't found that, but I kind of know how to get help. But some people would say, hey, dealing with the county is really hard. I got to pull a permit. I want to build a house out in an unincorporated area. I got to do this. I got to do that. I have a hard time working through the county. What would be your advice to somebody? How would they access the services if they want to build in the county?
Well, number one, I think that they're right. We're trying to do a better job on that, but part of it is the state rules that we work within. There's so many different kind of touch points within the county to go through all the permitting stuff to make sure we're doing it the right way. We try to speed up that process as much as possible. So number one, they can always call our office. Samuel Shoup is our constituent services director. They can always chat with him, and he'll get them pointed in the right direction. On more complex projects, we recently, within the last 18 months or so, started a land use coordinator program. And these are essentially like concierges to, I think we came to the realization at the county, I think all the supervisors realized it first, because we get the calls when stuff doesn't work, right?
Right.
And I think the county government finally realized, hey, if we're going to require you to talk to 25 different people on trying to build whatever it is that you're trying to build, that's a little ridiculous, and we're never going to get anything done. So but if that's our problem that we've created, let's just give you one face, and then they can go talk to all 25 people behind the scenes within government. So we have land use coordinators that we can assign that will be like the only point of contact, and then they'll go follow up with environmental health or county fire.
That's wonderful.
Or,
they speak the
language.
language.
Yeah, exactly.
They can go to the counter. Okay. And how do you access one of those coordinators?
You can just ask, and they'll assign you one.
That's great. It's like a counselor in school.
Yeah, exactly. And it really is like, I think your average single family home, unless it starts getting really complex, they'll try to just have you assigned like a regular planner, and they'll walk you through it. But we've had people who have built, lot splits, and, they want to build 3 houses at once, and, figure out the septic system for those 3 houses, and, where it starts to get like more and more complex, and we'll definitely assign coordinators.
That's great. That'll take some pressure. So for those of you guys who don't know, if you're going to call you're elected, you're going to call the supervisor's office as he had directed. They have people that will interface with the different departments and kind of walk you through it. But this concept is something that's this stops you from even having to go to your supervisor's office.
Yeah, exactly. And we can also request it from the supervisor's office. But our philosophy, Paul's philosophy as supervisor is, you have a private property right. Like, you bought the land, you're the one kind of making the risk, taking the risk of putting money behind whatever you're trying to build. Like, we don't have skin in the game at the county. Like, our only job is to make sure you're doing it up to code so that we don't get sued, if there's CEQA or something. But aside from that, like, just let people build what they want to build as long as it's within zoning, and try to do it as fast as humanly possible, because time is money.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize that enough too. Is, when people call an elected, I have so many clients that just are like, well, I'm just gonna either call the president of the United States or Jay Obernolte. He's gonna fix everything for me.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, your house is in the unincorporated county. Let's try your supervisor, right?
Yeah,
if it's in Victorville. The other day, I had a client that told me he wanted to call Robert Lovingood to fix his problem in Apple Valley. I said, it's probably not going to be effective. I mean, I'm sure he knows those people, but there really is help at each municipality. You just have to ask for it. Go in with the right mindset. You can't go in with a fatalistic mindset. You got to go in and say, like, this is what I need help with. And there's a lot of people that actually would help you.
Yeah, and I think most people in government want to try to get to yes. It's just, especially the larger government gets, the more bureaucratic it gets, the more boxes on the form that everyone's trying to check. And, sometimes I have to tell our staff, like, hey, it's not about having the perfect set of paperwork. It's having good enough paperwork that we can permit this project and let these people start building. Like, you don't have to go back and adjust on plan check something another 2 inches, unless it's truly legally required. But if it's just you wanting everything to be perfect, you aren't building it. You don't own it. Like, just let them build it.
Let them build it.
Yeah, that's how we approach it.
Well, man, it's been great catching up with you. And people, I don't know, I mean, I think a lot of the business community knows you, and obviously a lot of people in politics and government know you, but for our clients, I don't think they even know that people like you exist and how much you're doing behind the scenes. So I'm glad that you could at least talk to me for a minute about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. We have a 8 or 9 person staff. Every supervisor gets the same amount of money, so it's how much you pay your people determines how many staffers you have. But yeah, that's our whole business, is to try to push projects forward, make the county better, execute on Supervisor Cook's view. I'm very lucky that he gives me the leeway to, he never says this is how I want you to do it. He's a retired Marine colonel, so it's go take the hill. And you better not come back and say that you didn't take it. So
yeah.
But he doesn't care how it happens as long as it happens. So we could try to get a lot done, and I think we're fairly successful in that.
And he's going to run this year again?
No, he ran 2024.
Got it.
He won handily. As we have a good trend line there. 2028, he's still kind of making up his mind on what to do. He's getting a little older. His wife has been on him to retire for about 10 years now. So we'll see who wins that argument. I always joke with him that he needs to get Jeannie on board before he asks me what he should do for his campaign. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much for visiting with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yes,
Anytime.
sir.
I appreciate it.